All good? Ready? All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to the special meeting of the Planning Commission. Monday, August 28, 2023. It's now 6:02. Pursuant to the Brown Act, this is an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the Planning Commission on any item within the Commission's subject material, jurisdiction, including items on the agenda. This is not the time for the Planning Commission to discuss non-agenda items. Other receiving public comments, commissioners or staff, after being recognized by the chair, may briefly respond to statements made by the public or questions posted by the public. In addition, commissioners may ask questions or for direction and make referrals to the staff or future information to be reported back on the commissions at a later meeting. With that, we'll take the roll call.
Commissioner Brittingham?
Here.
Commissioner Chippenwell? Here. Commissioner Keith?
Here.
Vice Chair Cundiff?
Here.
And Chair Barron.
Here. Let the record show that we have staff here, Kelly Lucia, our planning director. We have Brendan Kearns, our assistant attorney. We have Mike Thornton, our city engineer. We have Justin Sheffel, our traffic engineer. Yesa Benson is our commission secretary, and I see a few other people back there I don't know names on. And
We'll
all
introduce after. Thank you.
consultants. What?
We'll introduce consultants after.
Okay, thank you. With that, can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any public comments on non-items on the agenda? I don't see any there. No? Thank you. With that, we'll go to our approval of the minutes. I have a motion to approve.
I make a motion we approve the minutes of August 14th of the regular planning meeting.
Second. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. At this time, I will hand over the meeting to the vice chair, as I am conflicted with this item.
And I have to recuse myself also, but I will be speaking, so I will have a second audience.
And I'm sorry, just to be clear here, the reason you're recusing is because of a material financial interest in real property, which is your primary residence, correct?
Sorry.
That's what we go with, that's what we go with. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the order of business, open public hearing. We'll go with staff presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so welcome. Thank you everybody so much for being here. I think this may be the best attended public hearing that I've seen, so we really appreciate all of you taking the time to be here and to make your voices heard and to help experience the local land use decision-making process. So thank you for being here. Briefly, I want to go through an outline of how the presentation will fold out. First, we're going to be exploring an overview of California's housing crisis. Next, we'll discuss Calimesa home prices and income trends. Then we'll move on to the general plan and housing element, the regional housing need assessment, or RHNA, and the sixth cycle housing element update, so everybody knows where we're at with that. Then we'll lead into the matter at hand, which is the residential infill priority overlay zone project. We'll have an overview of that. After the staff presentation, we'll have an opportunity for public comment. I think many of you already have, but if you'd like to speak on this item, please submit a speaker slip and observe the 3-minute time limit. Then we'll have Planning Commission discussion, and Planning Commission will make a motion and vote. Next steps after tonight's meeting. Tentatively, we have scheduled for City Council a public hearing scheduled for September the 18th at 6 p.m. So mark that on your calendar, and please keep an eye on the city website for the official notice. Okay, so the Housing Crisis Act of 2019 was declared by the state of California. And it said that California is experiencing a housing supply crisis, with housing demand far outstripping supply. California needs an estimated 180,000 additional homes annually to stay in pace with population growth. Due to a lack of available supply, California housing has become the most expensive in the nation. Further declared that California is also experiencing rapid year-over-year rent growth, with 3 cities in the state having had overall rent growth of 10% or more year over year. So imagine you renew your lease year after year after year, and it's increasing by 10% every time. Okay? Only 1/2 of California's households are able to afford the cost of housing in their local regions. California's overall home ownership rate is at its lowest since the 1940s. That's a critical part of the American dream, right? To own your own home. And the state of California ranks 49th out of 50 in home ownership rates, as well as in the supply of housing per capita. So we don't have enough housing units in the state as a whole. Furthermore, Housing Crisis Act declared that the excessive cost of the state's housing supply is partially caused by activities and policies of many local governments that limit the approval of housing. So it's really important because they're talking about us. They're talking about cities and the land use decisions that they make and how they are exacerbating the state housing crisis. Among the consequences of those actions are discrimination against low-income households, minority households, lack of housing to support employment growth, imbalance in jobs and housing, reduced mobility, urban sprawl, and so on. Okay, so we've talked about how there is a shortage in the state of California. Now, how is that translated to the city of Calimesa? This slide's really important. So from 2005 to 2023, you can see here, in 2005, the median home price was around $335,000. 2011 went all the way down to $158,000. Can you imagine if you could buy a home in the state of California today for $158,000? Does not exist. 2020 went up to $395,000, and here we are in 2023, and the median home price in the city of Calimesa is about $500,000. Okay, this is from another source. We're looking at median home prices from 2016 to 2023. The purpose of this slide is to show you the trend. Obviously, it's trending up consistently. We see very few dips in home prices. And when that's kind of blended in with an updated graph, you can see that that trend has only continued through 2023. And in 2012, again, median home prices were $165,000. So huge, huge change from what we see in the real estate market today. Okay, now please pay attention to the trends on the graph. This is home prices, up, 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 consistently up. Look at incomes. Look at how different the income trends are from 2005 to 2019 for the state of California. It's almost flat. So whereas the cost of housing continues to grow, incomes are not growing with them. So just to further show, 2005 it was about $75,000 a year. To 2019, $80,000 a year. And in 2023, we're barely at $85,000. So there's been a 13% increase in statewide incomes overall and a 64% increase in the same time period for Calimesa home prices. Think about how that might impact personal finances when the cost of housing has increased so dramatically, but income levels have not. Okay, so all of this has a high cost for Calimesa's families. Okay, what happens when there's high housing costs? So in the late 60s, the average home cost was about 3 times the average household income. Now it's more than 7 times the average household income. Younger Californians need nearly half of their paychecks to go to rent. When rents are higher, it gets tougher for renters to save money for a down payment on a house. And the general result is an increase in housing insecurity, multi-generational households, and homelessness. I think most people in the room know folks that have a mom, grandma, and baby all living together. It's very, very, very common. Okay, so what can Calimesa do? We're not able to influence all of the many factors that influence housing costs. So housing prices are influenced by things like interest rates, economic growth, number of households, availability of mortgages. We can't impact any of that as a local government, but what we can impact is the supply of housing. And the way that we do that is through city control of the general plan and zoning. That is a function of local government. And some of this will be repeat information for those of you that attended or viewed our land use workshop back in April. However, for those of you that are not familiar with what a general plan is, I'd like to go over a few of the nuts and bolts of what this document is. So every city and county is required to prepare a general plan. It's the blueprint for how local governments will grow. There are 7 required elements, one of which is housing, among transportation, open space, and others. And very importantly, it's a living document, which means that it changes with time based on policy direction of the city council. So you don't adopt a general plan and throw it on a shelf and never look at it again. As councils change, as policy direction changes, the general plan will change over time. Calamesa's last comprehensive general plan update was done in 2014. And again, one of the elements of the general plan is the housing element. And element is just a fancy word for chapter. So every city is required to plan for housing growth in their jurisdiction. So since 1969, California has required that all local governments plan to meet the housing needs of everyone in the community. Local governments meet this requirement again by adopting a housing plan as part of their general plan. Housing elements must provide opportunities for and not unduly constrain housing development. Individuals and families are directly affected by local government's ability to plan for housing of their existing and potential residents. Okay, that brings us to a process called RHNA, that is the Regional Housing Needs Assessment. So in order for the city of Calimesa to create a housing plan that meets local government needs, first the city has to know how much housing do we need to plan for, and estimate how much will be needed at a variety of affordability levels. So we can't just pick nothing but single family homes. We have to provide housing for all members of our community. This is determined by a process called RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment, and it's mandated by state law as part of the housing element update process. RHNA process determines the projected and existing housing needs for all jurisdictions in the state of California. So all cities and all counties are going through the 6th cycle housing element update. Many have already completed that process. The city of Calimesa, unfortunately, has not. We are still going through the housing element review process with the state of California. Okay, so how many units do we need to plan for in the city? This is required. It's required by state law. We are not able to change these numbers. This is not something that the city council, unfortunately, has discretion over. This is our RHNA allocation. Okay, so the city of Calimesa for the planning period 2021 to 2029 is required to plan for a minimum of 2,017 residential units. Stratified by income level, that comes out to 495 very low income units, 275 low income, 379 moderate, and 868 above moderate. This is the floor, not the ceiling. This is the absolute minimum that we have to plan for in our city. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, what does a very low income or a low income or a moderate income household look like? What is that number? What does that income look like? So this comes from the state. A 3-person household is considered very low income if they make about $40,000 a year. A low income family of the same demographic, 3 people, you're considered low income if you have an income of $67,000 a year. And moderate is at 85. So I want to think about a little bit what that means. Those numbers mean something, right? There's a lot of discussion about low income units. and maybe the type of people that may be associated with those types of housing units. And so I wanted to just put some perspective for these income levels. Keep that in mind. Very low income group, about $40,000 a year. Low income, 67 if you've got a family of 3. So very low income, $41,000 a year. Those are vocational nurses, substitute teachers, correctional officers, surgical technicians, service employees, students. And those that are considered low income, those can be dental hygienists, registered nurses, HVAC supervisors, mechanics, and so on. So these are members of our community looking for housing that fits within their budget. Okay, so that brings us to grants that the City of Calumet received. Some of you will be familiar with this information, but due to the chronic and severe housing shortage that the state is experiencing, the state legislature has prioritized housing and accelerating housing production. So what they did in 2017 was sign a 15-bill housing package aimed at addressing the housing shortage and housing costs. These funds were made available to all local governments. The grant program was considered over-the-counter, non-competitive grant funds, and the direction that the cities were given with these grant funds were to accelerate housing production, make it happen faster, make it easier for implementing projects. So the City of Calumet received about $250,000 in grant funding to prepare the residential infill priority area overlay zone. It's a mouthful for me too. Okay, so the project timeline, just so all folks in the room know, we've been working on this project a long time, since 2019. So in October of 2019, City Council accepted SB2 grant funds. In July of the next year, they further accepted LEAP grant funds, which is another granting program that has the same goals. We had a housing workshop, very similar to what we're doing today. However, no actions were taken, no decisions were made. There was just discussion that happened that introduced the overlay zone way back in May of 21. And then we did the same exercise with City Council in June of 21. Okay. We held a few focused housing element workshops in October of 21 and again with City Council in November of 21. So the purpose of this slide is just to show that everybody in the room, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been trying to tee it up to make sure everybody understands where we're heading and why. The why is really important, and I hope I've demonstrated that. Okay, so that finally brings us to the overlay zone properties. This map in front of you shows 36 different APNs that are proposed for rezoning. They would accommodate higher densities to permit by right. That's important. So what that means is that they wouldn't require discretionary action. They wouldn't require conditional use permit, further public hearings. The purpose of this is to streamline housing production, and so the proposal is to permit these higher densities as a by right land use type. So the project is divided into 2 separate planning areas. You'll see in yellow, area 1, that would allow townhomes, condos, duplexes, still would allow single family homes at densities up to 15 dwelling units to the acre. The important thing for area 1, no apartments would be allowed there. Area 2 would allow all of those same product types, and they would also allow apartments up to 35 dwelling units to the acre. Something I'd like to note on this slide is that there's nothing in this ordinance or this proposal that says anybody that came along has a minimum density. Any development proposal could still build single family homes if they so chose, but it would be a max density of up to 35 dwelling units to the acre. So no minimum density, that's important. Okay, so some of you may be wondering, how we chose these properties. So generally, these properties were selected by staff. We identified vacant, undeveloped, unentitled, residential infill parcels that are in close proximity to existing infrastructure. So all of the properties are already zoned single-family residential, with the exception of one property to the left of the screen in blue that has a split designation of residential and commercial. The 3 planning areas that would allow apartment development were selected due to their close proximity to the 10 the downtown business district, and existing multifamily development as applicable. So again, that property off to the left of the screen in blue is close to the interchange. The property in right, that looks kind of like a backwards L, that one was selected due to its proximity to the downtown business district, which was established by the city council some years ago to be a mixed-use, walkable downtown feel, very in line with multifamily development. And finally, the property in blue furthest to the bottom of the page, that one is actually located next to existing multifamily product. It was a 3-phase project that was built in the county, so there's 2 phases of multifamily already constructed, and before the 3rd phase could be constructed, the city incorporated, slapped single-family zoning over it, and it never developed. Okay, so if this is approved, what kind of development potential are we looking at? Under the current zoning, a total of 397 units could be developed. So that's as it is today. With implementation of the overlay zone, up to 2156 units could be developed. So that's an overall increase of about 1,700 dwelling units. And again, this is being done in mind with all of the housing crisis details that we discussed a moment ago. Okay, the city's low and very low income RHNA allocation is 770 units. With the project, up to about 1,000 units could be provided, which would create about a 33% buffer for those income categories, and that's hearkening back to the RHNA process that the state approves. They say we have to have at least 770. We're saying how about 1,000 to create a buffer because development is very uncertain, and these properties have been vacant and undeveloped for years and years. So we're trying to get the units actually constructed. Okay, this is also a very important slide. There is no income restricted housing proposed as part of this project. The units that are contemplated would be market rate, meaning that these are not subsidized housing units. The project seeks to provide affordability through design, i.e. density. The more units you can put on the less amount of land, in theory, the more affordable it will be. Okay. Now, to get into residential development standards, I just wanted to put this up on the screen momentarily. This was provided in the packet, and this is a part of the draft ordinance. So if this project is ultimately approved, these are the development standards that implementing projects would be subject to. Again, split into 2 sub-areas, an area 1 and an area 2, and you can see those development standards there. Be happy to answer any questions during Q&A that you may have regarding proposed development standards. Okay, privacy concerns. Lots of residents have raised privacy concerns related to potential construction of multifamily projects near their single-family residence. This is an extremely valid concern. We hear you. The project that has been considered, and the project has included design features that can help mitigate privacy concerns to the extent feasible. It's not perfect, but what we did, we have a combination of distance, so setbacks, 7-foot tall block walls, grade differences, and mature landscaping are all within the project, trying to help ease those privacy concerns. Traffic and parking, we've also had quite a bit of comment related to these 2 items. Before we get into the environmental analysis, I wanted to make the note the EIR found that there would not be a significant and unavoidable impact for transportation and traffic. Okay, so any and all projects that are implementing projects of the overlay zone would be required to prepare and submit for review and approval a traffic and parking study that would be approved by the city engineer and the planning department. It would be prepared in accordance with the latest edition of, it's called ITE Trip Generation Manual, and later in the Q&A we do have our traffic engineer here to help answer questions. So, environmental assessment. I'm going to go through the timeline briefly here. We had public review of a project initial study and notice of preparation that occurred between March and April of 2022. We had an EIR scoping meeting that occurred in April of 22. I see a lot of repeat faces, so welcome back. I'm glad everyone's here. Okay, we had public review of the draft EIR between March and May of 2023. And the city received a total of 24 comment letters. Responses to the comment letters are included in Agenda Attachment E, which is the final environmental impact report made available on the city website. Okay, so with that, we have a recommended action. It's that the Planning Commission adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2309, recommending that the City Council approve the environmental assessment, the general plan amendment, and the zone change. Before we get to that, I want to make sure I make it very, very clear. This is a recommended action. So the Planning Commission's role for this particular project is to make a recommendation, and then there will be another public hearing at the City Council, who is the decision-making body for these actions. Okay, so for questions, we have a nice, robust group here of consultants and technical experts to help with Q&A. I'm Kelly Lucia. I'm the planning director for the city. To my left is Brendan Kearns, our assistant city attorney. We also have Mike Thornton, city engineer, Justin Slafley, our traffic engineer. We have representatives from Albert A. Webb Associates, which is our CEQA consultant that prepared the environmental document. And we also have a representative from Kimley Horn, who has been working with the city on our housing element update. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. With that, we'll go to the applicant, if they have any comments or presentations that need to be made.
There's no applicant
No
this
app-
time. Thank you.
Okay. With that, then we'll move on to public testimony. Please be respectful of the 3-minute timeline and of everyone's comments while you're up to speak. We very much want to hear what you have to say, but just ask that everybody please be respectful to those talking. So first up, Monique Shernine? Sorry, I apologize if I mispronounced that.
So you brought up the whole housing structure. We live, a couple of us live off of Buena Mesa Drive, Mesa Grande. We do have some condos there. I built a home on a street that had a lot, and I bought that lot because I didn't want any more homes over there. While I was building, I dealt with plenty of the low-income housing homeowners that came from that condo structure. I had needles with people doing heroin in my house while I was building. I put up cameras. Also, after moving in, I noticed that pulling off of Mesa Grande onto Calamasa Boulevard, when the 10 is backed up, which it always is going westbound, that street blocks up. There's no way in, there's no way out. That is our only entrance and exit off of there. And your guys' plan is to take that traffic for a new build up, turn on Mesa Grande, on Buena Mesa, and there's nothing that you guys can do to fix that. So it doesn't really work as far as that, and then the whole land. I had a heck of a time dealing with you guys just to build my home because of the land. And you guys are talking about putting apartments behind us. And if you guys gave me that problem, I don't know how you guys are going to justify building those type of structures on that land that you guys sent me through 2 years worth of planning and engineering and a lot of red marks on my plans after dealing with it. So I just don't understand how you guys think you're doing that. And then with traffic, I don't know how many times I've been late. My father had cancer. I was taking care of him. How many late doctor's appointments because I couldn't even get out on Calamasa Boulevard with what lives on our street right now. So that's my part.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Trish Hetherington.
I'm just gonna come out and say what most of us are thinking, but probably don't have the guts to say. Most of us moved here because it's a beautiful little town and it's a place where we want to raise our kids. Where we want to raise our kids. And despite the beautiful slide that you guys gave us, none of us believe that the low-income stuff that's gonna come in town, our teachers, our nurses, our PE supervisors, we all know better than that. And we want better than for our kids.
Thank you. Trevor Wright?
Evening, I'm Trevor Wright. I'll be representing the Ragu family tonight, whose land is in question. Name's Trevor Wright, and I'll be representing the Ragu family, whose land is in question. And although it's going to be challenging to see change come into the city, change is always needed, especially on land and acres that have been vacant for years. You have 26 acres of prime development that you can turn into financial housing, phenomenal housing, that's going to bring in a lot of different families into a city and into a schooling system that's already depleted. I believe when I read the letters, there was a letter by Mesa Middle School that had mentioned they had declining numbers year after year after year. And so my question, I guess, to you guys would be, how are you supposed to grow a city if you don't develop, if you don't bring in new, younger families who want to stay here, grow, and continue to thrive in a business like Calamasa? So with that, the Ragu family is in full support of the rezone. Would love to see property get developed, continue to grow, and have a phenomenal city. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Andy Haney?
Andrew Haney. I live on 450 Myrtlewood. Again, everybody wants a small town to stay a small town. This is not the way to go about it. I know the state says we have to do certain things, but what they say up here doesn't have to happen here. We can make our own decisions and dictate the way we want to grow, not based on their numbers. The numbers on the income, we all know that's not true. That's not what it's going to bring in, just like what Trish was saying. We know what comes in with all this. Single-family homes, not apartments, the impact on police, fire, your schools, and then a number of other issues that it all brings together. I hope that you guys are not sitting here already with your mind made up and you're going to listen to the biggest show up that you've had in a long time. Just please listen to what everybody has to say. Don't have your mind made up, and hopefully we can do what we need to do here.
Thank you for your comments. David Zaitz?
Commissioners, my name is David Zaitz. I'm a resident of Calamasa. The state is in the middle of a housing crisis. As a result, the state is pressuring cities to increase housing opportunities. The proposal in front of you increases the city's goals beyond what is required. As I understand it, the proposal will make it possible for multi-level structures to be built in single-story neighborhoods. This would dramatically change the nature of Calamasa neighborhoods. This proposal should be amended to, 1, reduce the city's housing goals to be consistent with the goals already given to us. Secondly, put height limits on the upzone property to be consistent with the existing neighborhoods. 3, move any deficit in the number of neighborhoods on the number of units that may cause. Move those needed residential units to new specific plan areas. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Bruce Dickinson?
I'm Bruce Dickinson, and I am in support of this proposal. I just don't see how if there is the continued, not just in the city of Calamasa, but throughout the state, where development doesn't occur, the supply will continue to be less than the demand for housing. Prices will continue to increase. I have 4 children, 2 of them that live with me because of the affordability of housing, and and they're looking at renting, and even with the rents, it's just extremely high. With the larger lots, you're going to end up only having housing that's for very wealthy people because of the cost of putting in the infrastructure needed for large lots and for the houses that would need to be built to justify those costs. And so I am in favor of this proposal.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Anthony Greco?
Good evening. My name is Anthony Greco. I'm a resident here in Calamasa. Live on 5th and Myrtlewood, where they're planning to build apartments behind the residential area. So biggest concern, or let me just back up here, reason I moved here was a small town community. Love the small town. We are seeing it develop over the last 14 years with obviously housing and building, increase in traffic, crime. We're going to see a lot of that. My biggest concern, especially in my area where residentials and we're low, building 3-story apartments is a privacy issue. Regardless of what you say is what you're going to build, on either side you're not going to be able to maintain a privacy on both sides of the apartment complex. I'm looking at everyone here. I have 3 young daughters, son, and I like my privacy to stay the way it is. Now townhomes, I didn't think it was an option for my area. I didn't see it up when you gave it, Kelly. I don't know if it is.
It is.
Townhomes is an option?
Yes.
So if we were to build, and I'm not opposed to building in that area, but just the apartments for the privacy issue and the safety. When we build, we bring crime, more people. We have 1 deputy in this town who's gonna crime's out of control, homelessness is out of control. I'm not trying to get off topic, but when you increase the building, you bring more traffic. We can see that we have 2 off-ramps in here, 3. We're a little small town bringing a lot in here. I understand the state has required us you guys to build a certain amount. But we know that affordable housing is not affordable housing. So I am opposed to that, other than if we look at other options of townhomes in the area, something that can be give us residents more privacy and keep Calamasa not this eyesore of all apartments everywhere. I know there's much more I can say at this point, but I believe that when you guys make your decision on how you guys vote, that you guys look at the best interests of the residents of Calamasa. Make it a small town. Keep Calamasa as small as we can. I mean, we don't want it in Temecula, Orange County, to where we can't even get out of our driveway, and takes 20 minutes to get to Redlands or 30 minutes to get to Beaumont. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Brian Hedringston?
Good evening. My name is Brian Hetherington. I live over on Myrtlewood as well, across the street from where the high-rise apartments are looking at going, basically. I was just making notes while everybody was speaking right there, and especially looking at the slides and the facts and the studies and all those things. Calamasa, and as even we go a little bit farther east, are very affordable for the state of California starting off for real estate. Everybody knows you go farther west, Rancho Cucamonga, Pasadena, Los Angeles, double, triple, quadruple. So as far as affordable real estate goes, we're already there. You look at the apartments in Redlands, the apartments in Beaumont, those things are going for $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. If you're going to get market rate for those things here, then they're getting close to what a mortgage would be. The privacy, once again, everybody hits on that one. Is it supposed to be 3-story or 4-story? What are they approved for on the backside of Myrtlewood there?
That one is Area 2, which would allow up to 4 stories. We have not received an application for 4-story.
So let's just say you do approve this, and now we have potentially a 50-foot tall building with a 7-foot tall wall around it, staring into everybody down Myrtlewood and everybody down L, everybody down 4th and everybody down 5th has now just lost any privacy they had in their backyard. A 50-foot tall building. That's it's too much. It's too much too quick. The townhomes, the duplexes, even like somebody else mentioned earlier, sticking to what's out there already. I don't know if there's a 3-story house in Calamasa. Is there?
There's not.
Well, so a 4-story apartment would definitely be a sore of the eye if there's not even a 3-story house in the entire city already, and you guys probably wouldn't let one be built. I'm assuming you wouldn't let one be built just based on comments I've heard and knowing how things go in California and how hard it is to build things. So, police, once again, that was said earlier, there's very minimal police force here, very minimal. It's not going to get any bigger. They come from Cabazon. They have all those houses on the other side of the freeway to also partially police. Am I right that half of those are also Calamasa, the new stuff off of Cherry Valley? A lot of that's Calamasa as well. They don't seem to have a shortage of buyers over there. Seems to be a lot of people buying houses over there. So I don't know if there's a shortage of buyers or what it is. But that's my 3 minutes, and my 3 minutes is up. Security, 4 stories. It can't be 4 stories. Don't put 4 stories out here, please. At least keep it down to 2 stories to where it's already at.
Thank you for your comments. Anna, I'm going to mess up this, I can't read it. Thank you.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Anna LaRouche, and I want to speak to you regarding the upcoming vote for the zone change identified as Area 1 and 2. My family and I have lived in Calamasa for over 30 years. When we purchased our home over 30 years ago, we had an empty lot behind us, and it has remained empty, but this could change with the modification of the general plan and zoning designation if approved. Currently, the zoning allows for 7 units per acre. If the proposed change and it approved, it would increase the dwellings units to acres. Currently, the zoning allows 7 units per acre. If proposed change is approved, this would increase 15 dwellings to the acres of Area 1 and up to 35 dwelling units to acre of Area 2. This means that in these areas, townhomes, condominiums, duplexes, townhomes, and apartments would be permitted subject to staff level approval of a minor development plan review. 35 units cannot fit on 1 acre lot, but multi-level apartments can. I do understand that there is a need for affordable housing, but why is the city of Calamasa okay with building apartments in an area surrounded by single-family homes? I'm not opposed to creating affordable housing, but why apartments? Apartments would bring a large population to a small area and create problems. Does our city have the appropriate resources to handle the increase in population? Resources such as police, fire, and infrastructure. Is Calamasa Boulevard exit going to turn into another congested Cherry Valley exit? Can our existing roads handle the existing traffic? How about the addition of families that have children that will attend our schools? Since busing is not provided, we will see an increase of children walking to and from schools. A main concern is the addition of middle school children crossing the freeway every day of the week to get to and from school. If they are not walking, then we will see an increase of traffic for the vehicles twice a day. I'm sure most of you have seen the traffic congestion before and after school. Is the city of Calamasa prepared to handle this? Please consider this. Why not keep the zoning the same and build affordable housing?
Thank you for your comments. Eric Vreeman?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Eric Freeman, and I'm representing Kelly Beings, our superintendent of schools for the Capital Calamasa School District, as well as the district staff. I just want to share a little bit of information about capacity at our school sites. I know that's come up in the past, but as one of the speakers mentioned, we are in declining enrollment, And so capacity, for example, at Calamasa, we have 553 students and we can hold 800. Mesa View Middle School, we have 665 students and we can hold 1,700. Yucaipa High School, we have 2,600 students and we can hold 3,000. So the capacity, we have capacity at our school sites, and we invite and encourage young families to move into both Yucaipa and Calamasa in some fashion. The other thing I just want to share is a student voice from our students. We had a student present to a panel at the end of last year, a senior project, and she was concerned about, can she live in the community that she was raised in? Is there affordable housing? She was concerned about affordable housing in the community. So I just wanted to share that from a student perspective and also share capacity issues at our schools. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Robert Conrad?
Hi, thank you. My name's Robert Conrad. I bought my home here in Calamasa in 2008, well, technically 2009. And when looking for a home, I sought out a home with property, but yet not too far away from downtown, which is what I happened to find on Avenue L. With the proposed changes, I'd like to keep my focus on the amount of traffic that will be brought to the city, and more specifically Avenue L and 5th Street, with the majority of these properties being east of 5th Street, and the main road leading to those properties being between Avenue L and County Line Road. During the construction of the roundabouts, we have experienced what traffic may be like when there are 300 plus new residents living in that proximity, because all the traffic that would have gone down County Line Road is coming down Avenue L. I wanted to share with the members a project that my daughter had to do at school, which was a map of me, which described the world, the city, the country she lives in, the United States with the map, and then the California is known for agriculture. And the dispiriting part is that when she drew the picture of her city, her neighborhood, she drew a house and some trees and a line of 100 cars, which has been what we've experienced lately, and I foresee as what we will experience regularly when there are 300 or more units of housing added to this small neighborhood. And so I just want the council to make sure they're considering that amount of traffic that will be added to this small neighborhood when considering these locations. I am for increased housing and affordable housing. We need it, but there is other land in the city limits that can be used or zoned or modified to provide apartment living, as opposed to right in the middle of a single family small neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Kevin Nichols?
Hi there, Kevin Nichols, 31-year resident of Calamasa. I'm going to condense this best I can with the 3 minutes, but and first of all, I get it. I get the grant money. I get the growth. I've been waiting for Calamasa to grow for a long time, to be honest with you, and kind of failed miserably until about now. I think now I really see some growth happening. Single-family home is where, well, the area 2, where this last gentleman was up here, is where I am. I work from my house every day, and I'm here and I see it. And over the last 10 years, the traffic around L and 5th have become like a freeway, especially since the Singleton project was developed and completed. And I will personally argue that out of the hundreds and hundreds of cars and motorcycles and trucks that pass my house each and every day, their speed limit is about 55 as an average. That means some go 30 and some go 80 or more. I watch it. I've seen tractor trailers go on an unsafe speed down the same street. But the speed issue, in my opinion, I don't think people really like to drive through neighborhoods with people walking and kids at 50, 60 miles an hour as a rule. I think what I see is frustrated, angry people that are driving through an area that is just congested, especially during school hours, come home hours, that kind of a thing. I live on L, and trying to get in or out of my driveway is dangerous, to be real clear with you, especially trying to get in. As I'm trying to get in, make a left into my driveway, I've got 4 or 5 cars deep coming at me, going around me, and God forbid there be a pedestrian while that's happening. So, and I think I think you guys have all seen it if you've driven down Avenue L. And I realize too that these issues, some of these issues, we need more policing now, not after the project, but now we do. These are issues, people shouldn't be speeding and that kind of a thing. Is that right? 3 minutes? Okay, almost. Well, at any rate, I am for growth. I don't know if I agree with all the numbers, but I am for the growth, okay? I think a lot of us here are. I'd like to see this town prosper and, by God, look better. But I think the area that you're trying to put the density in on Avenue L and 5th, the infrastructure can't and will never be able to take it. And we, like this gentleman said, since that little roundabout that's taken so dang long, we're seeing what it's going to be like. But if you're talking as many homes on that property, you're talking a couple of hundred people times 2 cars. I mean, the math is staggering.
Your time's up, sir.
All right, I'm sorry. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Yeah.
Monique Nichols?
This serves as my comment and concerns on the project, particular area 2. I apologize, let me back up. I'm Monique Nichols. I live at 450 West Avenue L. We are between 4th and 5th Avenues, and the proposed project would be directly across the street from our home. It is my understanding that there is a developer highlighting an apartment complex coming to the area. It is also my understanding that the city is receiving grant money from the state. We are not against growth and or high-density housing. However, to revise the existing municipal codes to allow for high-density housing on this particular lot would be completely irresponsible. The following are reasons why we feel this environmental impact report has failed the citizens of Calimesa and how proceeding would result in significant impacts which cannot be mitigated to below level of significance. First and foremost concern is traffic, which unfortunately the environmental impact report determined would not have significant impacts. I find that very hard to believe. As homeowners in this particular area of Avenue L and 5th, we do find it very hard to believe. Since the opening of new builds in Calimesa off Singleton Road and the opening of Avenue L and Bryant, the traffic has increased significantly over the last several years. Rezoning to possible apartments on 5th and Avenue L would only increase the traffic even more so on Avenue L and 5th, as both are will be heavily utilized to gain access to freeway for commuters. Every weekday morning, we wait for 20 to 25 cars to pass before we can get out of our driveway. This morning, I counted 26 cars before I could even make it out of my driveway. The backup of cars at the stop sign at Avenue L and 5th, with people trying to access the freeway or middle school just on the other side of the freeway, is already excessive for a residential area. We are talking about 40 to 50 cars deep in this small 35-mile-an-hour residential zone. Has the city considered what the impact will be with an additional 200-plus units, each having the potential of 1 to 2 vehicles per unit? We are talking potentially of 400 to 600 more vehicles on Avenue L and 5th Street. There's also a church that holds services on Sundays and other days when they have events. And on a Sunday morning, there are cars parked along both sides of Avenue or on 5th. And depending on the size of the vehicles, it is difficult for 2 cars to drive in their respective lanes on the street without crossing the lane. You throw in pedestrians and, okay. You get my picture. You get my point. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Blake Ferris?
Hello.
you
Can
doing?
you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, my name is Blake Ferris. I'm a resident here in Calamasa. I live on Buena Mesa Drive, and I wanted to present factual errors in the environmental impact report. On page 1 of the document I provided for you, you'll see comments U3 and U4. We're going to start with U3, and then we'll come back to U4. So in U3, I presented an earthquake overlay zone. The city of Calamasa has what's called the Cherry Valley Fault going through it. If you look in fault going on over, you'll see a response on page 3 and 4 of the responses of my comments. On page 4, right here, it says, according or based on other substantial evidence of a known fault, right? Essentially, the people overseeing CEQA decided to ignore the Cherry Valley Fault. Furthermore, on page 5, you'll see it says none of the properties are located over on an earthquake overlay zone. We go on to 6, essentially says this is a CEQA requirement, saying, hey, is there evidence of a earthquake overlay zone? We have page 7 and 8 is the APN in question. On the bottom left of 8, we see it says county fault zone. On 9 is the Riverside County Mapping Portal, which also says that the county fault zone is present. Furthermore, on 10, we have the Calamasa General Plan, which presents the city or Cherry Valley Fault. Then on 11, we have the map from the state of California. This map I provided in my comment, it was ignored. Furthermore, on page 12 and 13, we have Calamasa General Plan, which has a policy in it that states the following applies in the earthquake overlay zone. Proposed residential projects shall be required to submit a geological report that evaluates the potential for surface rupture and other seismic hazard on site. Furthermore, on page 14, you'll see that the city of Calamasa just recognized this county's hazard zone, Cherry Valley Fault, on the Calamasa Singleton realignment project. There, on page 15 and 16, you'll see that it does not meet the requirement for CEQA. And then we go back to, on page 3 and 4, we go back to my comment about traffic, right? On there, you'll see on page 1, I presented U4, essentially Buena Mesa Drive is in the report, it's projected as 44 feet wide. In the Calamasa General Plan, it's only 40 feet wide, and a site analysis will show that it's only 36 feet wide. And you can see that on 17, on 17's general plan, on 18 and 19 is where it's saying that's 44 feet wide. And therefore on 20 and 21, right here it says 21, the written response shall describe the disposition of each significant environmental impact. Essentially, just to wrap up things, my comments were not properly addressed, and if you guys approve this, you're ill-advising City Council to accept the report with factual inaccuracies. Thank you.
Chair?
Thank you.
Hey, sir?
What's up?
Do you have any additional copies of your materials? Right, but we need to make it concurrently available to the public here for their inspection. So if you can leave one on that table or perhaps by our distinguished city manager, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Jim Watson?
My name is Jim Watson. I'm owner of one of the properties within the overlay zone, and I'm very much supportive of the plan. Calamasa housing vacancy is less than 3%. Rents keep rising. Our existing residents, increasing workforce, students, all need housing. The overlay zone is the most effective way to increase much needed, well-planned housing options while helping to reduce rental and home price increases. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mike Brittingham.
Good evening, Planning Commission, staff members, and members of the audience. I'd just like to start off first that more homes do not make lower prices or cheaper homes. Anybody who tells you that they're going to build low-income apartments, they've been smoking too much of that legal weed. They're going to build them, but they're going to charge market rates. So we're not going to meet the low-income and very low-income thresholds anyways. Anyone who tells you anything different, I'll take it up with them. As far as home prices, let's be serious. By the chart you used, all the new home prices and all the new homes over in Summerwin, that inflated everything. That is not old Calamasa, so you really can't equate the prices on that with going on. And as other people have stated, they're selling like hotcakes. We have a lack of inventory. Now, I personally hate to even think I'm up here being a NIMBY, not in my backyard, because we definitely need apartments, we definitely need housing, but we have to find other places. So as much as I like to talk about everything combined, I'm going to stick to what I'm here for, and that is the project on Douglas Street, which is above Bryant. It's right across from my house, and that's why I'm speaking here. About 5 years ago, he was approved for 18 units, half-acre lots, horse property. Technically, anything above Bryant on a half-acre lot is horse property. We are selling Calamasa as being a rural atmosphere city and everything else. We have very limited horse property because when people move out with their horses and someone else buys it, and there's no horses on that property, it's no longer horse property. So if we're going to maintain any kind of large livestock for people or anything else, we have to protect that. The gentleman who has that lot, like I said, has been 5 years, he's been approved to build his 18 homes. I'm sorry if he missed the ballpark. We had a big explosion. He could have built those homes and sold them already. He's a little late to the market. Like I said, it was 18 homes. He's applying for the 15 per acre. He could go to 150 units. 18 to 150. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're thinking, but that doesn't work. I built my house in 07, 08. I could not meet the water flow that the fire department wanted. I could not meet the pressure or anything else. I put a hydrant on that property so they wouldn't have to pull the fire hose all the way from County Line and Avenue L. Okay? I was told by the city, don't even show up with a 2-story house plan because they won't even look at it. They dictated to me what I had to build. And then also, the biggest thing is I just like to say is we do need the housing, we do need apartments, but it needs to be done in a way where we're not taking advantage of the existing homeowners that are already here. Avenue L, Myrtlewood, I feel for you. I would not want to have that backyard looking at that monstrosity. So think about what we're doing here. I know it has to go to the city council. They're the all-seeing force on this, but we really need to think about this and do it correctly. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Michelle Brittingham.
Good evening, Commissioners, City staff, and my Calamasa neighbors. In Area 1, the Douglas Street parcel is one of the last few parcels that remains in the part of Calamasa zone for horses. As it sits now, it is approved for 18 homes on half-acre lots, which is a nice size for a new community of equestrian-friendly homes. Even though these will still be smaller lots than most of the neighboring homes, it will fit right in with the horse-friendly neighborhood that I live in and continue the City of Calamasa's rural vision. There are 4 mapped trailheads nearby to access the trail system at the street corners, which make it an even better fit for a development of equestrian homes. If the zoning is changed and it's developed with 150 homes on very small lots, those new owners will likely complain about the noise from roosters, goats, sheep, donkeys, horses, and ranch dogs, which most of us in our neighborhood love to hear each day. I implore you to keep the peace by keeping the high-density housing closer to areas that are zoned for city living, services, and freeways. Hopefully, on the other side of the freeway, new areas where they will be conforming, so that our little slice of rural heaven can stay as it is and preserve Calamesa's rural history, which is so quickly disappearing. The city of Yucaipa is embracing and improving upon their equestrian roots with their successful annual rodeo and fighting to maintain larger lot sizes. So why is Calamasa not trying to preserve a bit of that horse-friendly feeling in one of the few remaining areas it has already zoned to do so? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Joyce McIntyre?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Planning commissioners, staff, Joyce McIntyre, Douglas Street. I've lived there since '62 and lived here in the area of Yucaipa and Calamasa since 1949. I'm here tonight to mainly speak on Douglas Street. I would like the planning commissioners not to adopt Resolution 2023-09 as presented and recommend to remove Douglas Street from the RIPAOZ project map. Douglas Street is zoned residential rural, 1 to 2 single-story homes per acre, approximately 10 to 20 homes. The RIPAOZ project increases and would allow 15 units per acre, 150 units. Move those 150 units to be integrated into the development like Pacific Plans, applications not yet approved, where high density is in continuity, as in Shop-Off, Holly Hills, Stearns, Berkshire, etc., and will not impact the existing residents. The state does not mandate cities to develop or include high density on infill property. Zoning on Douglas Street allows for large animals, farm animals, and if you adopt Resolution 2023-09 without removing Douglas Street, the character and quality of life will be changed forever in this area. Planning commissioners, ask questions, hard questions. The RIPO housing element, general plan, zone change, the EIR, which determined that the proposed project would result in significant impacts to air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, which means traffic, noise, and population and housing, which cannot be mitigated below a level of significance. What about mitigation, monitoring, and reporting programs, along with the RIPAOZ program into the draft housing element as a rezone program to be implemented in the effort to accelerate housing production? And the quota. Why did the city allow more units than SCAG, RENA require? Ask these questions. Get clarifications on this before you adopt Resolution 2023-09 as presented. That would change the quality, uniqueness, and character of Calamasa forever. Also, Douglas Street, since the roundabouts, like everybody else is talking about, Douglas never had traffic. Now it has enormous traffic because of the roundabouts. People do not want to use it. If a project like this goes in on Douglas Street, I can't even believe what would happen. There's a place for this kind of development down by the freeway, Calamasa corridor, where people of low income can walk or bike to stores and restaurants, not on Douglas Street. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Don Gia... I apologize. How do you say it? Giannini.
I don't know, me and my family, nothing against low income. Lord knows I was in that bracket for a long time. But who hasn't been? Who hasn't worked hard all their life? And that's what makes them, appreciate what they have, if it's home ownership or whatever. But, this town was once small. Now, we used to think 25, 30 years ago, wow, we're so blessed here. but now it's looking like LA. We used to think, thank goodness the congestion, traffic, homeless, whatever, was only in LA, but now it's here. We just need to look out on the 10 freeway every day. Live off of Avenue L and see the traffic that flows down at breakneck speed. Yes, we have to help low income, but at a controlled pace. Keep in mind, everyone here, those that live on L or near L, yeah, since the roundabouts, I'm for roundabouts. People don't know how to use them. They still stop. They're not a stop sign, but they will slowly learn. They work right. When people flow through, it's a great thing. But on Avenue L, it's a joke. And anybody, maybe they should put, those speed bumps like they did on Myrtlewood. Slow these people down. Be able to route the traffic somewhere else. Like I said, this once fair town, open spaces, what is there? A gopher can't find a field anymore. It's just out of hand. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Alex Urshed?
Good evening, Vice Chair, Planning Commission, city staff, and my neighbors. I own one of those properties in Zone 1, and definitely I support Zone 1. I bought this piece of property for one purpose, is to develop some sort of like senior housing, consist of single story for ADA compliance for my older folks, because I'm becoming one of them too. So I do support you guys, and I appreciate your effort in getting this one going through. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
That was the last slip. We don't have any applicant rebuttal. So with that, we'll close the public testimony. And to close the public hearing on that, now go to commissioner comments. John?
Yes, I'm really not involved with a lot of traffic, but as far as I'm on the other side of the street, and all my traffic comes from Beaumont. And I can understand and appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate some of the down calls that you're doing, and also some of the footprints. So are you voting now, or what are you doing?
No, just our comments
Yeah,
at this point.
that's about it. I'm like non-existence to the issues these people have, but I know the city does need, I appreciate the movement, the leaders, for developing and working on this for so long.
All right, thank you, John. Christine?
I just want to say, Kelly, thank you for your presentation. You did a very, very great, comprehensive presentation that put income levels into perspective and housing into perspective, so thank you for sharing that with all of us. And I love to see everyone coming out with the pros and the cons, the supporting and the not supporting. I think that there's a really big thing when property owners come out and say, hey, this is my property, and I really like the fact that now I have the ability to, do what I want with it, which is really great. And then with all of the, the oppositions with the traffic, the schools, the fire, the market rates, the privacy, we have a panel of consultants here. So I think with the traffic, one of the big things that we were hearing as commissioners was that like the Buena Vista flow, and that area there. My question would probably be to engineering, would be how in depth have we looked at putting like a westbound Singleton on-ramp? If we did have apartments that were constructed, would that even be a thing to put a westbound on-ramp onto Singleton that could be like useful by the developers or something like that?
You can't hear us.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can't hear us.
It is.
So, the question was about Singleton and access to the freeway from Singleton, the two missing ramps. In fact, the city is already working on that project and has been for the last 4 years to get those two missing ramps added at that location. So that is a project that is on our radar screen, yes.
I think that that would help alleviate some of the concerns that we have with that. I think that that would help alleviate some of the concerns that we have with the backflow on Buena Mesa coming through. I think that would alleviate a lot of that once those get put through. And then as far as the police and fire go, the substation we actually have here at the city, is that correct? We have a substation here now at the city for the police, like for the sheriff?
We do have office space available to them. I'm not sure that it's designated a substation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that would be something that would be coming up if these numbers were to increase, correct?
So what I will share is that the City Council recently formed an ad hoc committee specifically to study police services in the city. Those meetings have already begun. And what they're doing is they are sitting down with the city manager, with the police captain, and with members of the city council that are uniquely positioned to discuss such things. We actually do have a sitting council member that is a current police deputy. And so that is an issue that we have heard. We've heard from the public. We've heard from our community. We understand that policing is an important aspect of what folks are looking at, and the city council is currently studying that issue.
Okay, and then I do want to make a comment on market rates and home prices and values. As far as rental rates go, what we're seeing is, you know, $2,000 to $3,000 for market rates, which if you were to buy a house in Calamasa, which like the lowest house that we're looking at, we were saying $595. The mortgage with taxes and insurance is nothing close to $2,000 to $3,000. It's really not. So we really have to look at the bigger picture. And then as far as schools go, thank you for coming out and sharing our numbers with schools, because I think that that's really important to know that we do have the space and capacity for that. And then with privacy, this is my last thing and then I'm done. With privacy, Kelly, is there a way for developers to make building designs with these projects that are like 3-story, maybe 4, where they place windows and balconies that are not facing houses?
Yeah, so written into the draft ordinance is direction to the development community through development standards to always consider privacy concerns first and to always face balconies and porches away from residences whenever possible. So that has been studied, that has been looked at, and that would be a development standard implemented in any potential implementing project.
And that would be our responsibility to review when it comes to us to make sure that those standards are upheld and everything,
Yes,
right?
so tonight we're only talking about zoning and general plan designations.
Correct.
We're not talking about any implementing project. What would happen after this, assuming if this project is approved by the city council, implementing projects would have to be analyzed on their own, project by project. They would have to comply with every standard written into the ordinance, including those considering privacy, etc. So yes, there would be additional opportunity for review, certainly. The point of permitting by right would be that it could be approved without public hearing. So that's an important piece to talk about, is that it would be a staff level approval, but we would have our full department, all of our departments. So whenever a development comes through, it's not only reviewed by the planning department, it's reviewed by our whole development services team, and that consists of planning, engineering, the fire marshal, the fire chief, we have flood control, school district, landscape architecture. So there is a very robust review that happens for all projects, and including any potential implementing project in the overlay zone.
Are we allowed to recommend without that right?
The by right
Yes.
portion of it. So that is specifically written into the grant funding that we accepted. Again, the state is focused on removing barriers to housing production. And so every time there is a discretionary action taken, every time there's a public hearing that is required, there's additional opportunity to say no, right? And so the whole point of this project is to streamline and facilitate housing production. So unfortunately, due to our grant constraints, it has to be by right.
And then the last thing would be, does the CEQA team want to comment on Mr. Blake's earthquake fault zone?
Sure. So again, my name is Stephanie Standerfer. I'm a vice president at Web Associates. Monica Tobias and I represent CEQA Consultants. We work for the city of Calimesa. Our job is to prepare the CEQA documents. In this case, this project required an environmental impact report, which is the lengthy, long part of CEQA. I understand that CEQA is very frustrating and lets a lot of people down. We live and breathe this every day, and we get it, we understand. The technicalities, I only briefly looked at this. The Alquist-Priolo fault zone is an official designated zone, so you are picking up on county fault zones, which is not the same as Alquist-Priolo fault zones, which is what CEQA requires us to look at. It's a different terminology and it's a different database. So the initial study that we did talk about the fault zones. The one parcel that is in this area of Buena Mesa is not technically within this fault zone, but more importantly, the city's standard conditions of approval will require any development that when it comes in, they have to do a geotechnical report to check the faulting on that site specific. I don't think this is a debate. So I'm just explaining to you that there's a whole process of how that is going to get settled with the city.
Sir. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, you please.
The public hearing is now closed, so unfortunately it needs to be the commission's deliberations and questions to start.
So if you're concerned that we didn't analyze earthquake faulting, we did. And then there is also going to be, through the engineering considerations, there will be geotechnical reports that will ensure that you're not putting houses on fault zones. But everybody that lives in Southern California is potentially on an unknown fault, right? That's the nature of where we live. So we did address that. The comment about the collector, so again, we did respond to that by saying that, and this is, I get frustrating about CEQA, we no longer analyze congestion and pileup of cars and widths of roadways under CEQA anymore. So all of your comments about the traffic, like my heart goes out to you, that must be a horrible condition to watch 26 cars go by and you can't even get out of your driveway. I totally get that. The confines of CEQA now are related to how many trips people are making in their cars. And we are trying to get people in the state of California to not use cars. We're trying to get people to live closer to where they work and to where they shop and to provide safe. I know, don't beat me up. I'm just telling you, this is what in CEQA we analyze. So in this EIR, we are analyzing vehicle miles traveled. And because we are collecting people near commercial centers, which is what Kelly was explaining, these parcels were chosen because of their closeness to the freeway and that they're already around commercial areas. The idea is that if people live there, they don't need to get in their car to walk to the store, right? Or to run a quick errand or to take their kids to school. They could walk there. So when we analyzed the potential density that would occur with this overlay zone, it was determined that this would actually help the vehicle miles traveled, that this is actually the direction that we are trying to go in the state of California related to land use. I can tell by your attitudes and your facial expressions you're not believing me, but I'm telling you this is how we analyze CEQA now. So as far as how wide the streets are, that gets done at the engineering level. When specific development projects come in, the engineering and the traffic engineers at the city, they will be looking at whether or not the roads are wide enough. It's just technically not a CEQA issue, which is why it's not in the environmental impact report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I do, but it's not. I just think about when I look at apartments and when I'm in townhomes and things. I think about like when I'm in townhomes or apartments and I'm coming and going, and I think about how many people are actually exiting and coming in at one time. And usually you see like 1 to 2 people every minute or two. So I think that when you kind of look at it from a more active perspective, I think that it's not gonna be that bad, especially once the roundabouts are open, once Fifth Street is done, and once the Singleton on-ramp is, westbound on-ramp is fully functioning. I don't think it's gonna be that as horrible as what, what we're fearing.
I would ask the audience again, just please be respectful. I know you may disagree with some of the things that are being said, but please be respectful.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'd first like to say to all of you that got up and spoke, thank you for that. It takes a lot of courage to do that. It is sometimes bothersome to stand up in front of people and share your feelings about things or stuff that you have, really passionate feelings about. So I appreciate the fact that you guys took the time to do that. And I appreciate the concerns because being a retired deputy sheriff myself, I understand law enforcement is important. I am happy to hear that the city council is looking at that to try and bring in more law enforcement. So some of those concerns you have, we share those concerns as well, but I just wanted to tell you, thank you for your comments. We hear that. As far as some of the questions that I may have as far as the report that was done, if this was to go forward, is this going to accommodate the RENA numbers? Would we
Yes.
then be in compliance with RENA numbers?
Yes, so this rezone, as mentioned in some of the comments, provides a nice healthy buffer
Yeah.
to the floor that the state sets for us. We're looking at about a 30% buffer for the very low and low income units. I will say that potential approval of the overlay zone does not get us our rubber stamp with the state of California, as our housing element consultant can attest to. We are still going through that process, and so we will still need to continue that review process with the state, and hopefully we'll get approval soon. So there would be additional steps needed for staff and for the Planning Commission and City Council to then consider the actual housing element. Today is just a rezone. That is a component of the housing element project.
Okay. And then, did I understand this correctly, that there's no minimum density
Yes.
if this goes forward? Meaning that
Correct.
there's no guarantee that a project such as a 4-story apartment complex may
Absolutely.
end up somewhere?
Absolutely. So the whole purpose of this, other than to accelerate housing production, is to provide options for landowners that are interested in developing their parcels. And so if any of these particular pieces of property came in and wanted to build one house, even on the 35 dwelling unit to the acre land, they could. So some areas of the city, there's a minimum density. There's no minimum required density as part of this project, only a maximum.
So therefore, a single-family home could potentially be on either of these properties that we're
Absolutely.
discussing? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think with her questions, I think everything else I had concerns about dealing with this particular thing, were answered. So, that being said, we'll go ahead and, I guess, close our discussion period, and then now, if somebody wants to make a motion for us to decide on this. Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we recommend that the City Council approve the Environmental Assessment 22-05 and certify the Environment Impact Report for the Residential Infill Priority Area Overlay Zone, in parentheses, SCH number 2022-030-754, and 2, adopt the General Plan Amendment 22-01, and 3, adopt Zone Change 22-01.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Were you in favor?
Yep.
Okay, so all three of us are in favor for that. Okay, now that concludes that. So on to commissioners' reports.
Acting chair, maybe we'll get our chair out of the
Oh.
recusal area.
I get to relinquish my job.
back.
Just let this happen. I would remind everyone that we're still in the meeting, so if you could please keep your voices down or exit the building. Thank you.
Good to go? All right, the next part of this commission meeting is the commissioners' reports and comments. Mike, you got anything?
As always, just thank you, staff, for doing such a wonderful job in getting everybody prepared, and that's all I got.
No, thank you to staff. Thank you, Brendan, for being here and for all your help and input, and for all of you, the consultants and everybody that took time to be here today. Thank you guys for your time and for your input. Thank you.
John?
Just want to thank Planning Commissioner Lucia. Did a lot of work, and it's been a long time, so we appreciate her position. Can't let her go.
No, we can't.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, consultants, and thank you, city engineer. I know that you're under like a lot of pressure for all of those road stuff, so thank you for all that you do.
And I said the same thing. Thanks to all staff, everybody. It's good work. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to Kelly for our planning director's comments.
Sure. So, thank you, Chair. Just one quick reminder, I did mention this as part of the public hearing item that was just voted upon. What happened with Planning Commission was a recommendation only, so I'd just like to remind everybody that may be watching or listening that this was not an approval, this was a recommended approval, and that there will be a public hearing with the City Council to consider approval. We have that hearing tentatively scheduled, the same room, same time, 6 o'clock on September the 18th. Please keep your eye out on the city website and on your mailbox for the official notice. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, then we will adjourn to the Planning Commission meeting Monday, September 11th, 2023 at 6 o'clock in this room. Thank you.